power embodied in the Constitution to protect the Republic of the Philippines and our democracy.
Hi guys, in today's video and also in the part of this video, we're gonna talk about the background of martial law, how it was started in the Philippines, and how President Ferdinand E. Marcos proclaimed the proclamation of this martial law in the Philippines. My name is Sherwin Claveria and I'm part of this group, and we are investigating about martial law. So first part of this video is the background. So first is, what is martial law? Of course, martial law is a power or exercise of power, and under martial law, the military can detain individuals without trials. Pwede nilang huliin kahit sino nang walang kahit na paglilitis, and also kaya nila pwedeng mag-implement ng curfew in the specific area, and also the movement of the citizens is very limited kasi military lang talaga ang namumuno sa bansa, and also president is the head of state that time, and that is state of emergency. And let's go back now to the proclamation and also the implementation of martial law. So way back 1972, September 21st, pinirmahan ni Pangulong Marcos ang Proclamation number 1081 na nagsasabatas ng martial law sa Pilipinas. Tandaan nyo, September 21 niya pinirmahan, however, sinapubliko ito noong September 23 lamang ng gabi ng 7:17 PM. So almost 2 days, tsaka lang nalaman ng tao na ang Pilipinas, o nalaman ng buong mundo, buong Pilipinas, na ang Pilipinas ay nasa martial law na. 1972 o September 23, in-announce ito sa publiko. And then, kaalinsabay na balik punta naman tayo sa planning and preparation of martial law. So, paano nga ba pin-prepare o paano nagplano ang Pangulong Marcos sa pagpapatayo or pag-build or pagsasabatas ng martial law? First is, alamin muna natin ano nga ba yung dahilan niya, bakit daw siya nagsabatas ng martial law. So first is, ang sinasabi niya is, ito daw ay response sa various threat ng Pilipinas. Nandiyan ang mga komunista, threats daw ang communist. Nagkakaroon na ng mga rebellion, civil war, nagkakaroon ng mga barilan, nagkakaroon ng gulo sa bansa na nag-trigger daw sa kanya na magsabatas ng martial law. And then after that, sinabi rin niya na ito daw ay consequences ng political decay after na mag-failed ang American style democracy. Siya naman ang papalit. And then lastly, sinasabi niya ito ay refleksyon ng Filipino society na kailangan na daw ng fisted arm or iron-fisted leadership o kamay na bakal sa Pilipino, sapagkat ang Pilipino daw ay spoiled na at hindi na marunong sumunod sa batas. Yun ang tatlo niyang reason. And also, nabi niya maraming propaganda. And ang plano naman, ang bago niya isabatas to, pinlano ng Pangulong Marcos ang mga sumusunod na bagay. Una, make sure niya ang tiwala at trust ng Armed Forces of the Philippines na sa kanya lang, na siya ay magaling, na siya ay, alam mo na, veterano pagdating sa pagsasabatas ng mga ganitong klaseng batas. At sinabi rin niya na, at pinlano din niya na ang lahat ng Armed Forces of the Philippines na may tiwala sa kanya, syempre. And next one is nag-appoint siya ng 8 hanggang 11 na Supreme Justices sa Supreme Court at nakuha rin ang trust sa kanya. And then nag-gain niya ang support ng Nixon administration. And lastly, carefully crafted public relation environment that ensured the majority of the Filipino will accept the martial law. So, unti-unti niyang pinaisip sa tao na ang martial law ay kinakailangan ng bansa. Dahil nga daw maraming threats, martial law o maraming mga communist threats. Kaya daw niya isinatupad ito o sinabatas. And kaalinsabay ng pag-announce ng implementation of martial law is 23, sinabi rin niya na hinuhuli niya si Ninoy Aquino sa pagiging communist. Kasabay nito si Jose Diokno. So si Ninoy Aquino at Jose Diokno ay mas kilala bilang dalawang leader ng oppose sa liderato, o sila yung matinding kalaban ng leadership or liderato ng Marcos regime Marcos regime. So, hinuli silang dalawa, sinasabi sila ang may pakana ng mga propaganda, ng mga communist threats. So, sabi nung ng pagpapatupad. So, nasa TV din yan. And then, dagdag ko lang na bago matapos ang background is natapos ang martial law noong 1986 dahil nagkaroon ng people power na nagpatanggal sa Marcos at nagpalipad sa kanila sa Honolulu, Hawaii sapagkat 2 million people nagtipon sa EDSA or mas kilala Epifanio de los Santos Avenue or EDSA sapagkat gusto nilang makasan ang kamay na bakal at diktatorya ng Marcos. And thank you for listening to the background of on how was martial law was implemented here in the Philippines. Thank you for listening.
Hi guys, I'm Reynard Sanchez. I also report another part of the background or adding to Mr. Claverria's report of how martial law started, what is martial law, proclamation and amendments, planning and the end of martial law. As part of the background, I am discussing now the pros and cons during the martial law. Under martial law, media outlets were shuttered. Also those linked with Marcos crew ni Roberto Benedicto were allowed to reopen within the day. Soon after Congress was abolished, mass activities were prohibited. Political parties were outlawed. A curfew was put in place and civil and political rights were suspended. Martial law involves the temporary substitution of military authority for civilian rule and is usually invoked in time of war, rebellion, or natural disaster. When martial law is in effect, the military commander of one area or country has unlimited authority to make and enforce laws. The legal effect of declaration of martial law differ in various jurisdictions, but they generally involved in a suspension of normal civil rights and extension to the civilian population of summary military justice or military law. The advantage of martial law during Marcos's time was that the people were disciplined and crimes totally vanished. I think also that convening the interim bansa was also one of the advantages, but I think if President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. doesn't rule the Philippines, that time Filipino people got killed with the other countries. I realized that Ferdinand Marcos did that for good and for freedom for our country, even we got almost called as the dictatorship country. The disadvantages were that the death of democracy since the declaration had made people be muted for a moment and there was no freedom of the press, the rights of the people to speak and to share their opinions. About the current situation, we're totally denied and deprived. It is also created a strong military power which caused harm to the civilians. Some military took advantages while they were close and the president needed them. Many people died because of martial law. Employee become unemployment and many businesses dropped down due to this event and most of the children got killed at their young age. The pros in martial law in the Philippines is a quick command and control of a huge population since all civil laws and civil rights are suspended, while the cons in this event is very prone to abuse of power. Can lead to human rights abuses. Without civil laws to protect them, people have no protection against the abuses of government.
Hi, my name is Mary Vistan and I will discuss about the general understanding on martial law. First, what is martial law? According to Britannica, martial law is a temporary rule by the military authorities in times of emergency when civil authorities are unable to function. The legal effects of martial law varies in certain jurisdictions. It involves suspension of normal civil rights, like for example, absence of search warrant and warrant of arrest. Although temporary according to rules, a state of martial law may be extended indefinitely. So here are the legal bases of martial law. The 1935 Constitution, which is the Commonwealth, the 1943 Constitution, which is the Japanese-sponsored government, the 1973 Constitution, which is the Post-Martial Law Declaration, and the 1987 Constitution, which is the Fifth Republic Constitution. So the 1935 Constitution, Section 10, Paragraph 2, mentioned about the declaration of state of martial law. The same section and paragraph was used by President Ferdinand Marcos as legal basis for his proclamation 1081. The 1943 Constitution, Section 9, was used by President Jose P. Laurel to declare martial law during Japanese occupation. The 1973 Constitution, Section 12, also indicated the importance of martial law. The 1987 Constitution, Section 18, Post-EDSA, still included martial law as the safeguard of Constitution. So among the four constitutions, here are the common items. Martial law is declared in times of lawlessness, invasion, and rebellion to protect the Constitution. Only the President or the Prime Minister is allowed to declare martial law, but with the help of the Congress, the upper and the lower house. Such declarations suspend some civil rights, especially the suspension of writ of habeas corpus or warrantless arrest to expedite justice. The process of enacting martial law. In today's 1987 Constitution, established years after martial law was lifted, a president is bound by the following provisions in declaring martial law. As Commander-in-Chief, he may call out the armed forces of the Philippines in cases of lawless violence, invasion, and rebellion. In case of invasion and rebellion, martial law may be declared in the country or a part of it, and the writ of habeas corpus may be suspended. Number 2, both martial law and the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus may not exceed a period of 60 days. The writ suspension is not automatic under martial law. Moreover, the suspension only applies to those specifically charged with rebellion or invasion, and even with the suspension, the person arrested must be judicially charged within 3 days or else released. Number 3, within 48 hours of the declaration, the President must submit a report to the Congress. Congress must then vote jointly and decide by majority vote of all its members whether or not to revoke the President's decision. Number 4, upon the President's initiative, Congress may also similarly extend the period of 60 days when necessary. The period of extension is determined by Congress. 5. Subject to filing by a citizen, the Supreme Court is also mandated to review whether there is sufficient factual basis to declare martial law. Within 30 days of filing, a decision must be promulgated. All these measures ensure that immense power of martial law cannot be abused by the President. With all these checks and balances, martial law only be declared when there is sufficient factual basis to declare it as competently reviewed by the Supreme Court. Moreover, additional specifics are laid out to protect citizens from abuse under the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. Many of these additions reflect lessons directly learned from the period of martial law under Marcos. The declaration of martial law according to Marcos. On the night of September 23, 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos spoke to the nation by radio and television, stating that he had placed the entire country under the martial law. He mentioned that as of September 21, 1972, the country is in a state of martial law. He used Proclamation 1081 with 1935 Constitution as his legal basis in the declaration in order to suppress sizable communist force. The country is in complete anarchy, and there is a state of lawlessness which prevented the government to do its functions. He also said that there was an imminent threat of overthrowing the government under the President Ferdinand Marcos. He said that under the military rule, He promised to use his special powers granted by martial law in order to start reforms and lead the country into prosperity and peace. So, here's the dubious circumstances according to those who opposed martial law declaration. First, martial law was used by Marcos in order to extend his rule and stay in power indefinitely. Second, he even staged a series of violence and bombings, which according to the government was made by the communists. Third, a staged ambush to Juan Ponce Enrile was used as a reason together with the communist insurgency in order to declare martial law because both incidents of ambush and insurgency poses as imminent threat in the country. And fourth, people on the opposition party believes that martial law was used in order to eliminate political enemies of Marcos. So that's all about the general understanding on martial law. Thank you for listening.
This is Humphrey de Guzman presenting the issues about the martial law. So, before we proceed to the topic, marami kasi ang nag-i-issue noong panahon ng diktadoryang Marcos. So, ano-ano nga ba yung mga issue na yun? Ngayon, tatalakayin natin yung mga pangunahing nag-i-issue noong panahon ng diktadoryang Marcos. Siyempre, yung unang-una dyan yung pagkamatay ni Ninoy Aquino. No, maraming nagsasabi na walang nakakakilala sa pagpatay kay Ninoy Aquino nung siya ay pababa ng eroplano, no? Ayan. Noong August 21, 1983. So, yung nangyari noon, no? Kasi after 3 years nasa US si Ninoy Aquino, no? Because na-exile siya pagka nandun siya para magpagamot, no? Merong sakit si Ninoy Aquino that time. Then bumalik siya ng Pilipinas. Actually, ang intention niya kung bakit siya bumalik ng Pilipinas, gusto niya makipag-reconciliate kay Marcos, no? Sabi nga dyan sa isinasaad dyan sa PowerPoint, no? Gusto niya makipag-ayos, pero si Marcos, ang sabi naman ng ibang sources, ang security niya ang papatay sa kanya kay Ninoy, so that yung pagkamatay ni Ninoy Aquino, yun yung nagpugso sa damdamin ng mga Pilipino para lumaban, no? Kaya nagkaroon ng 1986 People Power EDSA Revolution. Yun yung EDSA 1 o EDSA 1. Pangalawang issue, no? Yung pagkakaroon ng 1973 Philippine Constitution, no? So, ano nga ba ang meron sa 1973 Constitution? So, kasi dito, yung Constitution na to, no, na bago Constitution ni Marcos, dito niya binibest lahat ng powers. Baga, kabalikat niya yung pinasara niya yung Supreme Court, yung legislatura, lahat, baga nasa ilalim niya ng kapangyarihan niya yung pamumuno, kaya siya naging diktador that time. Pero nung panahon na yun, bago siya i-promulgate na maging isa konstitusyon, pambansang konstitusyon ng Pilipinas, nagkaroon ng referendum. Ano po ba yung referendum? Yun yung i-distribute, no? Bawat municipalities, bawat probinsya, yung konstitusyon na yun, kung ano yung mga nakasal doon, kung ano yung mga batas, kung ano yung mga nabago, saka magre-reside ito sa aprobahan ba to ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Nagkaroon naman ng plebiscito, pero on the other hand, naging what do you say, na naging diktador si Marcos, no? unti-unti siya naging diktador simula nung i-declare niya yung martial law and by its 1973 Philippine Constitution. Pero may mga nagprotesta din, no? Nakasadyan sa ikalawang paragraph, no? Marami nagprotesta kasi hindi legal yung pero sabi ng Korte Suprema ang pagbabago ng konstitusyon, pagkakaroon ng 1973 Constitution ay patuloy pa rin. And ito ay 22 times na inamyendahan, no? Simula nung 1973 hanggang 1984. So, may mga pagbabago. Baga taon-taon mayroong pagbabago sa konstitusyon na tinatag ni Marcos during those times. Sabi pa dyan, it was strange kasi si Marcos mismo iniigno niya yung constitution na kanyang inamyendahan, no? Kanyang ginawa. Dahil nga ang hudikatura ay nasa ilalim niya, kaya marami ring mga abogado, no? Including Senator Ninoy Aquino na tumutol din sa pagbabago ng konstitusyon at sa nilalaman ng 1973 Constitution na inamyendahan ni Pangulong Marcos ng panahon na yun.
There was no really democracy during the Marcos dictatorship because arrests and detentions of Marcos opponents and protesters against the government. Closing down of all radio, newspapers, TV stations, and printing presses. Government control of all public utilities and important industries. There was a travel ban. Bans of public meetings, student demonstrations, and labor strikes. Bans of private weapons. Tortured and murdered of political prisoners. Primitivo Mijares, also known as Tibo, he published a book which exposed the abuses and excesses of the Marcos. The book, entitled The Conjugal Dictatorship of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. Luis Manuel Mijares, also known as Poyet. He was a 16-year-old child, a victim of the dictatorship era of the Marcoses. He was abused, tortured, killed, and dumped by the helicopter. He was not an activist, however, he was the son of Primitivo Mijares, the one who published a book and exposed the Marcoses. Jose Jocno, also known as Capete, he committed to his principles, justice and human rights. He openly criticized the government corruption, which made him clash with President Marcos. And because of this, he was in prison for 2 years without charge.
A lot of people are arguing and believing that President Marcos' time was good for the economy. They even say it was the golden age. In a 2016 New York Times article, a number of people said that during that time, the Philippines was the leader of Asia. The life was easier under Marcos, and the economy was booming. The early years of the Marcos time indeed saw a respectable economic growth. Gross domestic product or GDP, which roughly measures our country's total income, grew at an average of almost 6% per year from 1972 to 1980. However, in the early 80s, the Philippines dramatically but expectedly plunged into the worst post-war recession or the economic downturn. GDP shrunk by 7.3% for the 2 consecutive years, 1984 and 1985. So large was this downturn that it took the country more than 2 decades to recover the level of GDP per person in 1982. These so-called lost decades of the development severely demonstrate the pernicious impact of the Marcos time on the economic lives of the Filipinos. With that, a lot of people are proving and arguing that during the Marcos year, we lost our standing as one of the economic leaders in Asia. Moreover, they said that even times of growth during the martial law years, our economy was not outstanding in performance in comparison with our neighbors. So even though people argue that martial law is a golden era, there are still people who will continue to say that the economic crisis is due to the Marcos time that pulled down our country's long-term economic trajectory. On the other hand, despite the hate of some people to martial law, still a lot of Filipino loves and fight for Marcos because they witness the development of high-quality roads, transport system, bridges, school, and hospitals. So no matter how hard people attempted to stigmatize President Marcos, the significant things that he had accomplished cannot change the fact that because of what he did in his time, remain today in our global map. A feat that has never been equaled by the five presidents who succeeded him. Marcos' accomplishment and infrastructure and development makes people love and support him. So they fight and become the voice today because they believe that the accomplishment and greatness are missing in history book. However, no matter how Marcos loyalists loves him, our history will never erase, and those families who experienced martial law in his time continue to fight for their rights and continue to seek justice. As we all know, the dictatorship of Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos in the 1970s and 1980s is historically remembered for its record of human rights abuses, particularly targeting political opponents, student activists, journalists, religious workers, farmers, and others who fought against the Marcos dictatorship. Based on the documentation of the Amnesty International, Task Force Detainees of the Philippines, and similar human rights monitoring entities, historians believe that the Marcos dictatorship was marked by 3,257 known extrajudicial killings, 35,000 documented tortures, 77 disappeared, and 70,000 incarceration. However, despite these figures, a number of Filipinos argue that it was a peaceful time for the martial law, and Filipinos who didn't oppose the government had nothing to be afraid of. Despite this, others argued that being spared from the perils of martial law was a privilege. Ronald Castor acknowledged that while some Filipinos viewed that the Marcos era was peaceful and orderly, not everyone had the same advantage. It is not anyone's place to say another person's experience or stories were false. Some are not so lucky, Ronald Castor said.
To wrap things up, we've discussed the general understanding on martial law. We define what is martial law and define it by legal basis or what we call the Constitution. Furthermore, the martial law era in the Philippines history created a lot of people arguing and believing that President Marcos' time was good for our economics. In fact, some even says it was the golden age of the Philippines. In contrary, others says and believe that in this era, President Marcos abused his power and injustice prevailed during his term. Until now, these arguments are unending among the Filipinos. But one thing is for sure, that the martial law era in the Philippines created big impact in our country's history. Let's remember that we cannot change our history, but we can learn from it. Thank you.